All right, welcome back to Beyond Sports. I'm your host, Bob Taylor. Joining me is my co-host, Fitted Nuggets fan.
What's up, Denver and Nuggets Nation?
We're coming to you from 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. Up next, we're going to be doing a team profile on, I think, everyone's favorite team here in Denver, with everyone's favorite player, the LA Lakers and LeBron James.
I know that that's my favorite team.
Yeah, of course.
And my all-time favorite player, I mean, LeBron James is an all-time great. Can't be argued. Probably the best player to ever live. Probably still currently the best player in the league.
All right. April Fools, we're not going to be doing that at all. He still is a generational player. I think the best player of all time, but we can continue.
That was incredibly painful. I don't know. I'm sorry, listeners out there, especially if you didn't hear that whole thing. But that was an April Fool's prank. I do not feel that way. I just wanted to singularly clarify that to everyone that I in no way feel either any of the things I just said. But moving on, as a surprise segment, we are going to be doing a tier list of some of the best players in the league. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a top 10 player pyramid, so to speak. So 4 different tiers, 1 player in tier 1, 2 player in tier 2, 3 players in tier 3, 4 players in tier 4.
Okay, a little different.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of be just ranking players, and I think we all know who we're going to be putting in tier 1, player 1. Jokic.
I mean, Jokic is having an MVP campaign right now. I think he's
Again.
a minus 1,000 right now to win MVP on average sports betting right now. So pretty locked in. I mean, Luka's making his case, but I feel like it's too late.
So is SGA, but it's
just not the same. Jokic should have won it last year, honestly.
And I think that's where the heavy favoritism honestly lies, is everyone's just like, all right, we messed up last year. We got you.
Yeah, Jokic is the best, and
I think he deserves it.
Any GM is going to want to start a team with Jokic right now,
of course,
unquestioned.
But so let's move on to that tier 2. You mentioned Luka. Would you put? I think you have to put Giannis. I think Giannis is honestly having kind of an underrated season.
Yeah, he definitely is. But on the subject of Luka, though, I think we've got to put Luka in there. 33.8 points per game this late in the year is just unbelievable. And then you're following it up with 9.1 rebounds, 9.8 assists. I mean, if you take Jokic out of the equation, Luka's the unquestioned MVP of the league right now.
I would agree with that. I think the overall team success isn't necessarily helping this case. However,
I agree.
They've had a lot of injuries. It's kind of similar to when Jokic won MVP when they what was that, 2022?
6th seed, I believe, is how they finished that year.
Yeah, and that was in 2022.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of that, and I think he might not be getting the benefit of the doubt because after last year, Jokic is getting the benefit of the doubt for once.
Yes, yeah, and I just think it's his peak as a basketball player for Jokic, but Luka's going to go in that tier 2 for me. I think we're in agreement with that. I think Giannis, though, definitely makes a case as that second player. Embiid, I think, would have been a shoe-in as well, but obviously not playing since January takes him off that list, in my opinion.
He is coming back.
He's coming back. Today. I know, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm not super worried about Embiid. There's just something about him, and I just can't put my finger on it. I just don't trust the longevity of his success, if that makes sense.
I don't trust the longevity because of the injuries, for sure. However, when he plays and he's healthy, he's dominant.
He's great. Great. I'm not trying to take that away from him.
In the playoffs.
Yeah.
He has been somewhat injured in the playoffs. I personally don't think that's an excuse. If you're playing, you got to be at your best level.
Being healthy is part of the game.
Yeah.
It's part of the game. And it may not be his fault, but at the end of the day,
it's every season.
It contributes to success.
Yeah.
And your team can't win without you. But Giannis right now, from a statistical perspective, I think has the edge over SGA. We're looking at more points per game, significantly more rebounds per game, and more assists per game. So I get why we would put SGA in there, but, I mean, just from the stats perspective, I just can't do it.
Yeah, and SGA does have a better record, but I just think Giannis, while he does have Damian Lillard, the overall team isn't I guess that's not true either because they do have Chris Middleton. They do have
It's a
Bobby
well-rounded
Portis.
team, but we're looking at somebody who's producing that stats with a more legitimate number 2. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a good example as well as to why
yeah.
Giannis should be in there because we have Damian Lillard, who's one of the best in the league, and then who's SGA's number 2? Chet? You know, who isn't even winning the Rookie of the Year race. I mean, he's great. I'm not trying to take it away from him, but he's not an all-star caliber Damian Lillard player. He's just not.
Yeah, Chet
not
or
dropping
Jalen
51
Williams.
in the
Jalen
All-Star
Williams
game.
has just really been impressive.
Jalen Williams, great. The Thunder are a well-rounded, tough team, and that is a big
They're
reason
built.
why their record is the way it is. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily completely SGA. And I'm not saying Giannis is either. I don't know. My vote's Giannis.
I would agree with that. So I guess we start off tier 3 with SGA then.
Yeah, SGA is an unquestioned tier 3. I think he's just it's just tough. This year is really talented, and it's hard to put him into tier 2, but he deserves it. I mean, at one point he was an MVP candidate. I think he's still top 5.
He's still top 3.
Still, yeah, up there. But either way, after that, I think now we're getting into the real conversation of things.
Yeah.
Because now it's a much more mixed pool. And, it's like I want to put KD in there, but
think you have to.
his record isn't showing that. So it's like, is those stats contributing to team wins?
the record isn't showing it, but it's also they're all building chemistry. It's pretty much a completely new team. They all had to build chemistry throughout the season. There's been a lot of injuries that have happened throughout the season for the Suns. I don't put the blame on KD. If anything, I put how good they've been for how hectic their season has been. I put that success on KD.
Yeah, and he's been stable. Booker's been stable. Their 2 stars come in and they get their job done. Nurkic has been a good
When
addition.
Booker plays, though, he's been
he
injured
has.
this season.
But overall, only being 9 games back out of first place is impressive, and it's just the shootout in the West this season. So
Yeah.
being 8th in the West doesn't necessarily mean you're really 8th in the West, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's like really you're tied for 4th.
they're 8th in the West, like you said, 9 games back. Giannis is 2nd in the East, and he's 11 games back from
Right.
first.
Yeah,
I mean,
tough
it's-
comparison.
Yeah,
So I think, all right, we can probably put KD in there. You convinced me. That's a good enough case.
yeah.
I think we got to put Jason Tatum next. I think the Celtics are just having an insanely dominant season. And now, granted, that is a contribution of a few things, but Jason Tatum is just a solid player for them, having a good season right now and just dominating that number 1 seed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Best player, best team this year.
At this point on the list, I think that's when it comes into acknowledgement level. That's why he's not number 2. It's not why he's barely making it in here in tier 3. I just think he deserves the acknowledgement because he has been slightly underrated for how good his team is.
Yeah, I don't know if slightly underrated is the right term necessarily, but because I think earlier in the season he was highly overrated.
Yes.
And then the pendulum swung back, and now he's kind of being underrated. However, I kind of want to put LeBron there. I know we were making jokes before, but he's got a better 3-point percentage than Steph Curry right now. Obviously, the attempts are way different. That's a straw man argument. I was kind of just kidding.
I mean, it's always
But-
going to be hard to convince me to put LeBron anywhere when it comes from a respect factor. I mean, just the other day, and I know this doesn't necessarily count towards the game, but his team's down. They're clearly not going to win the game. He leaves the game early. And I don't know about the other fans, the listeners out there who are listening, who agree with me here, but that stuff drives me insane when it comes to a player, especially of LeBron's caliber, somebody who you're considering the best player ever. And honestly, he's definitely one of the best players ever. There's no question about that. Love him or hate him. You can't say anything against that.
Of course.
And for somebody like that to think it's okay to set that kind of example, I think it's kind of ridiculous. And again, I know it's not the game. I know it's not going into this list, but he's 9th in the West, 11 games back out of first. I don't know. I have a tough time putting him in over somebody who's number 1 in the entire NBA.
I think
Producing similar stats.
producing similar yeah, I guess that's true. And the Celtics do have a way better built team.
Yeah.
So
I just think,
he doesn't have to.
yeah,
produce
I
that
would
much.
definitely put Tatum over LeBron if that's who we're going to be considering next. I mean, there's a couple players I might argue with you over, but
I think we can put Tatum. I think we can put Tatum there. But let's kind of switch up and say Steph. Where would you put Steph at? Would he go in tier 4?
Well, I would put LeBron in tier 4. I mean, considering how late he is in his career, still producing at such a high level, never even remotely been done before. I mean, the next closest person is barely at half of his stats. So insanely impressive. LeBron goes in there. I think Steph goes in there kind of for a similar reason, especially for somebody who has been injured as much as he has throughout his career to still come out and kind of play his same game of basketball is great to see. And then I think it gets down to like Jalen Brunson. I think is having a very great season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if I could put him top 10. I feel like I'd have to put Kawhi.
But then like Sabonis too. Sabonis is playing a very well-rounded game.
Yeah, but I don't even
He's just dominating in different ways. He's just not dominating on a scoreboard.
I just don't think he's even the best player on his team. I think De'Aaron Fox
I know,
might deserve that.
This year, it's just so tough. The league's so talented. I mean, even Halliburton has a case to be on that list. I mean,
yeah, after the last couple weeks, I think it's kind of
after the All-Star break, he's definitely cooled off. But before the All-Star break, man, he was unbelievable, and he was an All-Star starter this year. We can't forget that.
I think I can agree with Brunson, and I think to wrap it up, I don't think you're really going to have a disagreement with me on this. I think Kawhi would be that number 10 spot.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of shown, similar to like Steph and LeBron, just that toughness and being able, not so much LeBron, but being able to recover from injury and still come out, play his brand of basketball, play winning basketball. The only thing I think that holds Kawhi back is just his supporting cast. But we can make that argument with other people. I just think that he's got a lot of people producing well on his team. So it's not necessarily all Kawhi is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So, like you said, he's not even the best player on his own team. That argument could be made for the Clippers. Now, I think Kawhi is the best player on that team. But Paul George is definitely a close second. I mean, that's a very mixed team of talent, and they're playing great. I like the Clippers.
I think he's just been the consistency that those specific group of players have kind of lacked. And I think that consistency has really helped them become, what are they, 4th in the West right now?
Yeah, and it's hard to even say right now with how the shootout's going.
Yeah.
But no, I can put him in there, and just to wrap our list up, let's slot him in as our last player.
All right, that was our top 10 player pyramid with Beyond Sports. Be sure to follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Call in or text the show at 720-446-8463. Again, that number is 720-446-8463. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. for another good episode of Beyond Sports.